Well, there's a lot of interviews floating around now with Atari slash Digital Eclipse gentlemen talking about this upcoming Mortal Kombat collection. Not only do we know more about the collection, including another game that's going to be included, but we found some interesting stuff in how the games are being emulated. So this should be fun to talk about. Plus, I have an interesting question to pose to Kelly. So I know, first off, you're not a big Mortal Kombat guy. Is this collection interesting to you?
It's getting more and more interesting and well played by doing the interviews because and they even kind of talk about it in that that they say, yeah, you put these collections together. One big part of the audience is folks that know and love the game, like whether it's the Atari stuff, grew up with Atari, so there's a nostalgia piece for that. In this case here, big Mortal Kombat fans, so they wanted something like this for a long time. But then they also talked about there's a secondary audience of people who are more casual on it, and people saying, I never really played Atari but I got the Atari 50th, and because of that, I become a fan and that kind of stuff there. So I fall in that second camp for Mortal Kombat, that's not a franchise I was just steeped in, and yeah, it jumped on it from there. But the more I kind of hear, they're talking to the creators, and so that stuff, and it's everything we loved about the Atari 50th collection, the behind the scenes stuff. Um, get to see kind of sketches, early ideas for the sprites, fatalities that never made it into the game, fatalities that made it in the game but were never displayed. So all kinds of very interesting stuff. And so I find all that stuff super interesting. So it's significantly increased the likelihood that I'll be getting this for probably for the Switch.
Yeah, and as far as like the behind the scenes content, they said this is actually going to be the most that they've done so far, with the video interviews clocking in at 3 hours of video interviews included.
Yeah, I mean, and they weren't short on video content or other stuff with the Atari 50th collection. So that's 3 hours I can see that probably collectively the Atari 50th didn't quite hit that, but there was quite a bit. So
Yeah.
this one's going to have even more. That'll be great. Yeah. So I think this definitely made me more interested.
Now, what was interesting too, I watched a few of these interviews. They covered a lot of the same ground. One thing I want to bring up that isn't covered in the longer form video that I had sent you. It was like a 45-minute interview where they really got into depth about certain things. They were specifically one of the Atari guys was specifically asked in a shorter video, "Is Mortal Kombat Gold going to appear on this collection?" And he said no, full out no, it won't be included. Nothing PlayStation 2 or Xbox on is going to be included. Mortal Kombat Gold was the Dreamcast Mortal Kombat edition that came out for it. No PlayStation 2. So that answers a question that I had in one of our previous ones because Deadly Alliance, the Game Boy Advance port of that, is on here, but Deadly Alliance isn't. Deadly Alliance was released for Xbox, PlayStation 2. So it was never an arcade game. It was exclusive to Xbox and PlayStation 2. Will not be included. Gold won't be included. So it tells us right off the bat that where the hard stop for it is. And the hard stop is the game that was just announced for it, which is Mortal Kombat Trilogy. So Mortal Kombat Trilogy was a lot of people will tell you just a revamped version of Mortal Kombat 3. There's more to it than that, though, which they touched on in this longer form interview. So first off, I did not play Mortal Kombat Trilogy when it was initially released. I didn't play it until a lot later. Essentially, what it is it's the sprites of all of the Mortal Kombat characters, or nearly all of them, playable in one giant, ridiculous game. The problem with it is, so the early CD-ROM Mortal Kombat's had major issues with loading. Even playing it on my Saturn through the Saru, which it quick loads the games, there's tons of stuttering and load time in there, and that is much faster. In fact, there are videos on YouTube comparing Saru to the physical disc loading, and it shaves so much time off. And I think it's barely playable now with the time shade off. So the PlayStation version is even worse of Mortal Kombat 2. So that's why that's not included. Mortal Kombat Trilogy, and this answered a lot of questions. First, we know how far they're going, Mortal Kombat Trilogy. Nothing beyond that. It is the PlayStation 1 version, so it's not going to be the Nintendo 64 version. The Nintendo 64 version has a lot of changes to it. Mortal Kombat Trilogy really picked up a lot of fans because it became a game that people play in tournaments. So it became a really popular one for gaming tournaments, specifically the Nintendo 64 version, because some of the mechanics are different and it doesn't include the boss characters as playable characters. So this is the PlayStation version, though. Nintendo 64 won't be on there. It's based on the PlayStation version, though, which they're quick to point out. They have made a lot of adjustments to it to make it play a lot more smoothly. So that was one of the things we had talked about in our previous video. There's a lot of quality of life fixes that could be made to some of these earlier games, like load times, or take the Super Nintendo version of Mortal Kombat 1, which wasn't properly adjusted, so the characters are a little stretched, things move a little sluggishly. So they didn't specifically say if that would be adjusted, but it sounds like they are making quality of life fixes in there too, which is nice to know.
Yeah, and a big improvement to my quality of life was uh, I lack the patience and probably the skill to complete a game to the extent that I unlock deeply buried secret characters and all of these things. And so when I was very encouraged on this one is like, hey, have you always wanted to do this in Mortal Kombat 1 or this in, some of these later versions? It's an option on the menu. You can jump right to it. So, because they talk about some of the extra goodies and there sound like some pretty cool experiences, but like I said, I'm a novice at the game. I'm not always the most patient man in the world, so for me to slog through enough and make sure I did things in the right way to make that magic key unlock, and may or may not happen. The extent of my secrets was the finding the pixel in an Atari adventure. The fact that I was able to get to that, and I think somebody had to show me that. If I'm not mistaken. Hey, do you know you can do this? Oh, wow, that's pretty cool. So I haven't been able to recreate that though. Going back to it's like I know I need to take the bridge up there, and that basically with the Easter egg was just the developer's name, but not a playable character like this. So it looks really
Yeah,
cool.
one of the things that's always added to the replay value of Mortal Kombat games is each from the very beginning there was stuff you could unlock playing through the game, from playable characters or extra characters to fight, different environments you could fight in. And as the games progressed, that list of things you could unlock started to get huge. When you by the time you get to Deadly Alliance, there's a crypt section where you have to win so many matches and collect items, go down to this crypt to unlock different doors to get different moves and hidden characters and all kinds of stuff. There's like hundreds of things you can unlock. So, I mean, it becomes a big part of the game, and some of them are very difficult to get to. Like in Mortal Kombat 2, to unlock the one secret character, you have to beat the game like 50 times or like that, like just crazy stuff. So, they've made it, as Kelly said, to where a lot of this is just available on a menu now when you start up the game, which is great because that's definitely going to have help casual players or people who just don't feel like doing that again because we already did that on whatever other system.
Or a casual player that doesn't feel like doing it, which would be me. So so happy about that.
Now, another interesting thing that they said though was that they're already talking to Atari about future collections, but specifically talking to Atari about doing title like doing a particular franchise collection like Mortal Kombat, but with a classic Atari title. So I thought that was kind of interesting because there's so many things that could be that they do. For example, Haunted House has had multiple remakes and later sequels and things like that. You can easily do it for something like that. I wanted to ask Kelly though, what Atari title would you want to see a full collection with hours of video and all that good stuff, Digital Eclipse style done?
Hmm. So if I got to stay with an Atari title, and so not any of their kind of clone developers, whatever, kind of stay actually within the Atari family, or can I jump to some of the other producers, Activision and that kind of stuff?
I mean, I guess as long as it's Atari adjacent. I mean,
Yeah,
they're specifically saying Atari titles. I feel like it's an Atari published title.
yeah. So I'd love a collection of all things Atari Star Wars. I think that
Oh yeah.
that would be a pretty fun thing. And then um, yeah, I mean, just kind of going back to one of the ones, you know, there was an Adventure 2, but I think that would be well, it'd be an interesting story. It's more of a YouTube video than a new product for Digital Eclipse to put all their muscle behind and do. I think that could be covered maybe better in a YouTube video from that. So I um I think probably the Star Wars family would be my choice on that. Where I'd end up, pigs in space would be fascinating, but I'm gonna stick with uh, the Star Wars offerings within Atari. How about you?
So I mean, obviously we would need a Mystique collection to get, beat 'em and eat 'em and stuff on there, but I feel like some of those games are problematic now, so they couldn't do that. So putting
Some of
that
those
aside,
games,
a
some of those.
couple of
You
those games,
want to
couple of
list one
those
of the
games,
non-problematic Mystique games for me?
beat 'em and eat 'em,
Uh,
family
Incorrect.
fun. But, and of course, I have a prop for this. The one that I think we could get, and there's definitely enough titles to do it, would of course Gauntlet.
Oh yeah.
That's one I'd like to see because you could do the Dandy games for the Atari computer systems. You could do the Dark Chambers games for 2600 and 7800. Then you get into Gauntlet, you have the arcade game, you have dozens of ports to every platform, then all the sequels and spin-off games for it. There's a lot of games for one title like that, and I would imagine there's plenty of people to interview related to it as well.
Yeah, I think it's a great choice, and I hadn't thought about it, but that'd be perfect choice for that, and a rich enough history too that you could really have some good content. They talked about the Atari stuff. They also were pointing out obviously Mortal Kombat was not an Atari original release, and so they seem to have found a way to unlock cooperation on IP to put some of these together. And so, while I think either the Star Wars Atari or Gauntlet Atari stuff would be good, I think there's other things on the horizon too that I'd love to see, since they've kind of broken that ground and they could go. And what I'd love to see rather, is for when you purchase Amiga Forever, an Amiga emulation environment, so that you can kind of enjoy Amiga games on your PC. It's really well done, well worth the money, by the way, folks. It came with, so I got the disc copy and the digital copy. The disc, I basically got the disc copy, not because I was going to use it to install, but it came with just tons of video. Um, Nowhere near the professional. This was, Mike walking around with a VCR camera through the through the halls of Commodore as Amiga was shutting down and seeing people kind of gathering stuff, but it was like all some of the OG folks on it, and see a CD 32 sitting on a desk over in one spot and all that. So it was just done. So there was and then them hitting the bars afterwards and complaining about what was going on. Um, so they have like a lot of footage, but it is like an unedited home video that they just let run. And while it's super interesting, it also probably would benefit from a little bit of editing and context as well, the kind of things that Digital Eclipse has shown they can really do well. So I would love to see them kind of as a base using some of that Amiga Forever stuff. And I'm sure there's plenty of other content out there. And perhaps the new owners of Commodore might want to get engaged and involved as well and talk about the new era stuff that we're now going to be able to get into. So that'd be another one that is not in the Atari family, but one I'd be very interested in a um, Commodore one.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. And then, obviously it's too early, but further down the line, and I'm sure they're already thinking it, Slapdash.
Yeah, I mean that goes without saying. That's such a
Yeah.
rich history there. I would love to be interviewed to discuss. I have many things to share. Stuff like that. And the good news is we've got already got the Chuck Garrett clip, so He can clear up
Yeah,
everything for us right away.
Mike, let me tell you a couple things. I know where you live. And you need to just kind of zip it a little bit, all right? Because your boy is the #1 Beasto fan. And if it's coming from me, you know it's true. So let's make you, Mike, the #2 Beasto fan. See you soon, bro.
And we're ready
it
to
was
go.
like Kelly fully knew that I was doing, asked me to do it, in fact, and
Yeah. So Digital Eclipse, if you're watching, so we're ready, to talk about a big seller. I mean, it is a little young in its history, but get in on the ground floor, and you're going to get Chuck Garrick. What more can
yeah,
you
it's
ask for?
true.
He said he was going to do what? you know. So we'll see. Cool. Anything else, sir?
No, I just guys, Gauntlet. It's an Atari game. There's a million of them. Plenty of people to talk about. And there's an interesting history because it started as a game called Dandy, and then Atari was like, we own that, right? Let's just make stuff. And they didn't. So there's interesting stuff to talk about. Tons of games. That's where I think you need to go.
Bog Panda.